Good morning. Is everyone ready?
How much did you get for the shotgun?
$950. It was 223 bolt action.
Okay.
Light job.
The fire chief from Oak Hill walked with it.
Yeah, he usually does.
He does that.
Yeah, Mike does that.
You have to be nice to him.
If members of the public would like to zoom in on the meeting, the Zoom contact is on the agenda. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Is everyone ready here? Good. Okay, thank you. We will be going into adjourning into closed session. Ms. Lambert, could you just please read the item in case any member of the public wishes to make a comment?
Closed session item number 1, public employee employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, County Agricultural Commissioner, Director of Weights and Measures.
And could you read the other closed session? I'm sorry, excuse me. Right. Do you want me to just say it now? Okay. That closed session item will be moved out until next week. You do number 21 and 22, please?
Item 21, conference with real property negotiator Joshua Pack pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 regarding price and terms of payment for the following properties affected by the State Route 4 Wagon Trail Realignment Project Phase 1. County negotiators are Joshua Pack and Doken Engineering. Number 1 is Gregory D. Jordan and Nuala M. Jordan, trustees of the Jordan Revocable Trust. APN number 053-002-050. Number 2 is Wendell F. Ender and Mary L. Ender, APN number 053-002-051. Number 3 is Stephen L. Stange and Gloria Stange, trustees of the Stephen L. and Gloria Stange Revocable Trust, APN number 053-002-053. Number 4 is Scott Frazier, APN number 053-007-023. Number 5, Edward R. Titus and Erlinda C. Titus, trustees of the Titus Revocable Living Trust, APN number 053-007-024. And number 6, Tiscornia Ranches, LP, APN number 053-001-018 and 052-001-019, 053-007-011, and APN number 053-007-031. Item number 22, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 with county designated labor negotiator Judy Hopkins and Shay Johnson regarding employee organization Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association, CCP, SEA, Calaveras County Deputy Sheriff's Association, DSA, and Calaveras County Sheriff's Management Unit, SMU.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public on these two items?
I do not have any calls yet.
Okay, thank you. We will adjourn into closed session and we'll reconvene at 9 o'clock.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to move to staff announcements. Does any staff member have something that they would like to address?
I don't have any staff members that have indicated they'd like to speak.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move to regular agenda part 1 and a public health update from staff on COVID. Ms. Stranger.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Kristen Stranger, Health and Human Services Agency. For today's COVID-19 briefing, I will be providing this update. So as of October 26th, 2020, a few data points to begin. California has approximately 901,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19, resulting in approximately 17,000 deaths. Those exact numbers are available on the state's as well as our local website. In terms of local information, as of 10/23/2020, we have 342 confirmed cases, 8 active cases, and 18 fatalities. Calaveras County received information as of last night that we will be moving to the yellow or least restrictive tier.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to the county as a whole. So we received that information late yesterday, and effective tomorrow, our county will be able to move into the least restrictive tier, where most indoor business operations will be able to open with modifications. As we know, those tier assignments are based on test positivity and adjusted case rate. For smaller counties, as I went over last week, we have had a modification in terms of the numbers of cases that we could have to account for the fact that in a smaller county, there can be larger swings to one direction or another. Calaveras County did receive word that we submitted our targeted investment plan as part of the health equity metric, and that was accepted. So kudos to the public health department who did a very good job on preparing that with a very quick turnaround and having that come into play when we were receiving our tier assignment as of this week. Locally, we are finding that we did have a dip in COVID-19 cases in the middle of October, but the case rate has begun to slowly tick up. So we'd like to remind everybody that all of the mitigation efforts that we've been discussing since the beginning, the distance, the staying home if you're sick, the face coverings, the hand washing, those all still very much remain the best practices. And by doing that, we can continue to, as a community, remain in the least restrictive tier and having most of our businesses be able to operate indoors, which is what we've been working towards, one of the measures we've been working towards. So again, remembering that those key messages that prevention is the best defense. Also, in terms of some new guidances, particularly because the holidays are around the corner, the state did release a guidance for Halloween and Dia de los Muertos gatherings that really provided some safer alternatives to some of the traditional activities, such as trick-or-treating or larger parties. And so that information is available on our website. I'd encourage the community to go take a look at it and identify, again, some safer alternatives to traditional measures. I'd also like to point out again that the state did release a modification to the gatherings guidance, which has been something that we have been, there's been a couple of iterations since the onset of the pandemic. And this information too is available on our website, but in a nutshell, it is basically says that gatherings gatherings with more than 3 households, separate households are prohibited, and that those gatherings should occur outside. So it is a safer alternative to some of the traditional gatherings that were occurring prior to the pandemic, and a movement to less restrictive operation for the in the current environment. So with that is the overarching update for COVID right now. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions from the board or comments from the board on this particular part of her presentation? Okay, please proceed. Oh, Mr. Mills.
Congratulations to everybody on the yellow. What is it going to take to get to a green, or is there such a thing?
Thank you, Supervisor Mills. That's a great question. So actually, tier yellow, tier 4, minimal is the least restrictive tier. So we are there. There is no green tier. It goes purple, red, orange, and yellow for the current environment.
So the state will, are they going to make any move at all towards no restrictions? Instead of least restrictive tier, something stating no restrictions? Are we talking about that at all?
So in the current environment, while we still have the pandemic, very, very much a pandemic, we will be, as a state, in a environment where there is some sort of a modified way of living, which is what we're currently in. So I believe kind of what you're discussing, this concept of life back to completely how it was prior, is not likely to occur until after there is a vaccine that is available. I believe that is when we will probably move more towards the type of non-modification environment that you're describing.
Thank you.
Mr. Stopper?
Thank you, Mr. Mills. The yellow tier is the best news I heard since May when we were able to open businesses back up. So I'm pleased to hear that. Also, I want to thank Mr. Mills for also bringing up some of the questions I have. Is moving forward, I mean, at this point, if we follow the science, we have a projected vaccine coming forward, but we don't know if that's an end-all, save-all. And when do we lay COVID-19 to rest? Now, we do see numbers spiking throughout the United States and other parts of the world, so we understand that the risk is still there, and we should be all aware of, different factors, but it goes back to the way things used to be. If you're sick, you don't go to school or work and get other people sick. At that point, you make your own judgment. But I'm glad to hear that Calaveras County has moved in the direction of, a safe direction, and our numbers are down so far as to be in the yellow tier, which is, far ahead of a majority of the rest of the state. So it does account to the fact that, beyond one perception or the other, that people are mindful of each other's health throughout our county, and we should continue in that direction so that we maintain in yellows for as long as possible until we could get into the so-called green, hopefully in the future. Thank you.
Just a reminder to my colleagues that the testing center leaves at the end of this month, and if you would like to get tested in county, I recommend you go to the fairgrounds. Ms. Stranger, you have some other things to discuss, please.
For this item, I don't. I do have another item right after number 2 about
that's
the interim
right.
health officer.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions from the public for Ms. Stranger on this item?
I do not have any public comment online.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to item 2, adopt a resolution appointing Dr. Beatty as the interim public health officer effective a week ago, 3 weeks ago?
The 17th.
Oh, thank you. Item 3. Couldn't do it without y'all. Through January 22, 2021, in line with the agreement, and authorize the chair to sign an agreement with Dr. Beatty to serve as our interim public health officer for the not-to-exceed value of $50,000, and authorize the director, Ms. Stranger, to make any modifications to the agreement as long as it does not exceed the total value. Please, Ms. Stranger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Kristen Stranger, Health and Human Services. So we are pleased today to bring an item to you to appoint a interim local health officer since Dr. Kaleda's resignation effective October 16th. Dr. Beatty has agreed to work in collaboration with the health department on an interim basis effective October 17th, so that we didn't have the lapse in terms of health officer coverage. So a little bit of information about Dr. Beatty. He was born in Michigan, and he attended Michigan State University, both for his undergrad as well as medical school. He did his residency in the San Francisco area and moved to Calaveras County in 1982. He is a resident of Mountain Ranch and is an individual who lost his home during the Butte Fire, and is very proud to say that he has rebuilt his home over the past few years. He has practiced emergency medicine, mostly at Sutter Amador in Jackson, for more than 40 years. He has been engaged throughout the pandemic particularly with the Amador Health Department, providing assistance to their health department, and now we are very fortunate and grateful for the fact that he is also providing assistance to us. His main motive for helping with the interim status of being the health officer is to help move the preparations and the plans for the COVID vaccination clinics for when that becomes available. And so thus far, the relationship has been very beneficial. We very much enjoy working with him, and we are very happy that he has agreed to work collaboratively with us. And so before you today is both the contract as well as the resolution for the appointment. With that, I can take any question.
Mr. Stopper?
You know, most of it looks fine to me, and I appreciate everything, but I have a question on the financing. This will be good through January 22nd of 2021 from October 17th, 2020. So you're saying $50,000. What was the total amount of the contract that was originally signed by the resigned doctor in June when we redid it?
The total amount for that contract, I believe, was $150,000, and I think it's important to start back up a little bit, that these are not to exceed contracts.
Right.
Meaning we have information and then that says we only, that the bills that come in are for actual services rendered on an hourly basis. So the likelihood of even getting near $50,000 is not likely, but that is how we built the contract. That's the case. We have to account for all sorts of different options. For Dr. Kaleda, his contract was over the modification that I brought to your board I believe it was in June of this year, was a amendment to the existing contract as well as an amendment for the not to exceed amount to account for the increased hours that he was providing, because traditionally he had a monthly amount that was part of the basic, the regular, more pre-pandemic health officer work, and then obviously when the pandemic became a reality, that the amount of time that Dr. Kaleda was providing service to us increased dramatically. And so with Dr. Beatty, we're following the same type of structure for the most part of the contract, with the same concept of not to exceed amounts on an hourly basis for actual services rendered.
Very good, and I understand that, Ms. Stranger. How much was drawn out of the contract prior to October 17th?
I do not have the exact total of the amounts that we ended up billing, but I can get that information and get it to you.
I'm not going to contest this moving forward by any means, but when you get an opportunity, when you get that information, can you send it to me?
Sure.
Also with the fact that, maximum of $50,000 in place, and then we still have the rest of the fiscal year moving forward after January 22nd. So I would just like to know where we're at on that contract moving forward.
Sure, that's not a problem. I can assure you we did not go above the $150,000 amount for Dr. Kaleda, but those numbers are easy to gather, and I can provide them.
I can appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Stranger.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, we appreciate Dr. Beatty stepping up. I guess to kind of play on what you had said, I had already written something down here about, in the current yellow status, what kind of hours do you think we're going to be needing to fulfill this role over the next 90 days of this contract?
So I can tell you what we are currently working with. I can't fully predict the future, but I can give you an idea of how we are working with Dr. Beatty. So given that we are also being mindful of his time, right, because he also is providing other services within the community, but we've established a relationship that is mutually beneficial for both, right? So what I mean by that is that we are typically connecting with Dr. Beatty a minimum of 2 times a day during a set time where we go over kind of the things that the public health team needs, and then reconnecting in the afternoon. And then we typically will do one, again, we just began, right? So this is a little bit more flexible as we have need to respond to the pandemic. But and then we've identified a couple of hours throughout the week where we will identify and address systematic needs that we have. Because again, this is a large response with many components. Part of the benefit of having a very strong and capable public health division with many qualified team members is that they are able to very much do a lot of the work, and then the work that we specifically need medical input on is where we are making sure to get that input from Dr. Beatty himself. And thus far, the relationship is working. So that is kind of an overview. We're looking at a handful of hours throughout the week. And then, but again, the purpose of having this contract have flexibility is if something new happens, which seems to be the way of the world, we need to be able to have that flexibility to draw more if more of his assistance if we need it, or keep as is.
Kristen, so this really isn't this says a 7-day-a-week contract. There's going to be times where you're going to need him on the weekends just as much as you would on a weekday, correct?
Yes, we have been able to, I've talked to him on the weekends, so yes, we have been able to reach out to him, and he's very flexible. Ideally, we're trying to, as much as possible, keep to those prescribed times because that's what works the best for everybody, but of course, there's always unanticipated things, and that is, he's been more than willing to help out on those times.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments from the public on this item?
At this time, I have nobody online wishing to make a comment.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stranger, thank you for everything, even finding us an interim. We appreciate it. May I have a motion on the 3 items, please? Adopting the resolution, appointing Dr. Beatty, authorizing the chair to sign the agreement, and giving the director authority to make modifications as long as it doesn't exceed the $50,000 value.
I would like, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion as
Okay.
just stated.
Okay, a motion by Supervisor Stopper, a second.
Second.
By Supervisor Garamendi, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to move to general public comments. Well, if there are any members of the public who would like to address the board on an item not on the agenda, please come forward. You have 3 minutes.
Morning. My name is Lou Bumpus. I live in Mountain Ranch. I've sent you multiple letters, and I've contacted code enforcement multiple times.
Can you take your mask off because I can't hear what you're saying?
I've contacted you multiple times and code enforcement multiple times, and I have had 0 results. In my subdivision, there's a man growing 8 acres of grapes. It's zoned rural residential. He tried to change his zoning to rural agriculture by his own admission to get into zoning compliance, which he's not in zoning compliance because your zoning right here says the rural residential zone is intended to provide lands for personal ranches in which residential use is the primary land use. The rural residential zone is established to permit small-scale farming primarily for personal use and not as a primary use for the property. Nobody lives at this property. The guy comes, by his own admission, the previous owner admitted he's using 15,000 gallons of water a day. That's 2.7 million gallons of water every 6 months. He's harvesting approximately 8 tons of grapes per year. Okay, when I talked to Peter Maurer about this, he says that I'm wrong. There's a discrepancy in the code. And this discrepancy is allowing this man to grow 8 acres of grapes in rural residential, although the code says this. When I ask him what the discrepancy is, he doesn't tell me what the discrepancy is. So what I'm here for today is, I'd like to know what the discrepancy is.
What is the address of the property?
It's 7653 Cave City Road,
7653
Cave City Road. And it's called Mountain Vineyards.
Mountain
Vineyards,
Vineyards.
yes.
Okay, thank you. And,
I'm sorry, Canyon Vineyards.
oh, okay. And your name, sir?
Lou Bumpus. I see the guy about once a month. He brings his family for the day. Nobody's
Okay.
living in this house. And even if they lived in the house, 8 acres is not a small farm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other public comments on items not on the agenda?
Kim Bumpus, Mountain Ranch. Lou and I are married and live together. One of the things that he failed to mention is that the property owner came before the board and was denied, and then he sued the board because he felt that his denial wasn't correct. and then he turned around and sold the property out of the county. So I don't even know if the new owners are aware that there was any discrepancy in the code at all. But it is a small subdivision, and none of the other owners are using such an amount of space for agriculture.
So is the issue water, or is the issue?
Absolutely, the issue is water.
All right, thank you.
3 people have put in holding tanks in the 3 years since he was denied his code change.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
I have a handout with photographs.
Okay.
I'm Gary Lewis, Mountain Ranch. We live adjacent to the Bumpuses and one property away from the issue in question. I thank the board, which I addressed in 2017. 3-2 denied his application for rural agricultural. As Mr. Bumpus clearly stated, this is not rural residential use of the property. It is clearly, as shown by the photographs, most of the entire property is used for the production of grapes. And again, as Mr. Bumpus stated, no one lives at the property. This is rural residential. All of us live in this area on our property. We've had a serious reduction in water for our own uses. We have gone to the expense of putting booster pumps and holding tanks for our water. I collect rainwater. Many of us in the area collect rainwater for small irrigation for our decorative plants around the home. When this applicant was denied, he subsequently, sued the county and went ahead and planted 22 more rows as shown on this photographs. What he is saying to the rural residents is this, to the rural residents: I'm going to do what I want because I was told I could. I didn't tell him that. None of the other residents told him. He's told the board, I don't care what you say in denying me. I'm going to plant 22 more rows. I ask this board to seriously look into this matter and respond, which Mr. Maurer has not. In January and in May, I applied, and my wife applied, filling out this complaint form. No response. We didn't get any response from Maurer's office. We would like a response and something done to cease and desist this improper and immoral and lack of consideration to the property owners who are the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on items not on the agenda? Ms. Glanville, is there anyone on the line?
No, there is not.
Okay. Seeing any more public comments, I'd like to move to the consent agenda. Oh, Mr. Mills already has his light on. The consent agenda is normally routine, non-controversial, and will be acted on at one time by the board unless a board member besides Mr. Mills would like to pull an item from the agenda, or a member of staff or the public. Mr. Mills.
I see you're still smiling, Madam Chair. Number 8.
Pardon?
Number 8.
Number 8. Okay. Any others? My colleagues have any others? Does staff have any item they would like pulled? Does any member of the public like to pull an item off of the consent? Okay, thank you. May I have a motion on the balance of the consent agenda?
We move the remainder, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. A second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Mr. Mills, item
Yes.
8, please.
Item number 8 has to do with the position control list again. These are 2 limited term and 1 limited term analyst. The point is that it has a defined date on it as to how long that these positions would be in effect. I am more concerned that, to be sure that we are not allowing these positions to go beyond the funding that is going to be in place for the positions. So I'm not certain that a date is the correct thing to have here, but more to state something about the funding that drives these positions.
Ms. Hawkins or Ms. Stranger, or if you're on the line, Ms. Hawkins?
I'm going to go ahead and let Kristen go ahead and talk about the funding for these positions. I think that would be more appropriate.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Kristen Stranger, Health and Human Services. So Supervisor Mills, forgive me if I missed a component of your question. When we switch over to the presenter mode, I lost a little bit of it, but I believe what I heard was a question about the concept of a date as opposed to a funding amount, correct?
That's correct, because right now it says that it's a date certain. If the funding runs out before that date, how are we going to fund it?
So it's a very good question, thank you. The positions themselves, when we built out the budget based off of this ELC Public Health Department funding that's coming from the state and from the state for the purposes of doing a COVID-19 response, we accounted for the fact of the fully loaded cost throughout this time frame. So while I completely understand what you're saying, the amount of money that we've projected to cover and we've budgeted for will cover the cost through this time.
I believe his question is, what would be the impact at the end of that time frame? And should that be put in the resolution, Mr. Mills?
It calls them limited term
Yeah,
positions.
they're limited
Right.
term positions, but I think that, Madam Chair, you're correct in where you're
That's
trying
the
to
same
take it.
thing that we discussed
Last
on
week.
on the last position,
That's right.
when Ms. Stranger.
There's one
Ken.
key difference, is that the last one we discussed did not say limited term on the positions, which is the difference.
Yes,
But they were
Supervisors.
grant-funded.
They were, but it was a particularly different grant for a much longer term and a different focus. This particular grant, we received the funding quarterly. And so this, like I said, this money does back up to the amount that we'll receive quarterly. Supervisor Mills, a potential option could be that we could add into the recommendation with a sunset date of X, Y, and Z, or at such time that the funding is expended. Some sort of language like that could be added. They achieve the exact same goal. And as I said, we have developed the budget to account for for the budget for the entire time of the positions that they would be providing COVID-19 assistance to our team. So I'm open to that type of modification.
And that was the point I was trying to get to. As long as the funding's available, positions can be filled. When the funding goes away, there has to be a clear understanding that these positions will go away with it.
Yes, I believe we're saying the same exact thing, and I'm of the same understanding, so I don't have a issue if there's those words added to the recommendation.
So what I'm trying to say is they're funding dependent, not date dependent.
Understood, but they're the same thing, because the date is matching up to when the funding is coming. But I understand your point. You're saying that as if the funding was to go away for whatever reason, we don't want to have these positions on the still here as part of the limited term. So you're trying to prepare for all the potential instances, correct?
And that is my point, is there's no guarantees that all of those conditions that the state is giving us right now will be met 6 months, 9 months, a year from now. I just want to be sure the language is in there, that everybody's clear and understands that it is all fund dependent and not date dependent. So if the state does make any changes, you're not scrambling to try to fill this void.
Understood.
Mr. Stopper?
This might be as much of a question for HR as it is for you, Ms. Stranger. With that said, let's say the quarterly thing is filled for one and a half years, and these so-called limited term employees are here for over a year, which puts them as effectively protected permanent employees. How do we get I mean, I don't want to way around that, but how do we get around that?
So, Supervisors, Vice Chair Stopper, typically for grant-funded positions, they are not considered permanent at all. And we do try to put a sunset date on them, or not let them go over 3 years. Because employees in limited term positions do not have all of the same benefits as permanent employees. And with limited term positions, so say something happens, something comes up, and 1 year from now, the funding goes away, then we can terminate the employee because their position is dependent on the funding from that grant. And if something happens and it goes away prior to when it was expected, we still can eliminate the position.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good answer, Ms. Hawkins. And I just, with that, I don't need to talk about eliminating positions much more than that. It's kind of a morbid topic, so.
Mr. Tuffanelli, you had a question?
Well, I was just going to ask Dennis what he's proposing here. Are you still keeping the sunset date and just adding, or
Right.
the funding runs out?
So it's clearly understood as a direction from the board that when the funding is no longer available, those positions, they can't meld into, they can't be subsidized in another way. They can only be paid for out of that grant.
And keeping the November 18th date?
Yeah, the date's fine.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
That's,
Thank you.
so you're asking for both to be in there?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I guess I again need to say we have multitudes of grant-funded positions in this county. Health and Human Services has a lot of grant-funded positions. The departments know they submit a budget, and if they don't have the budget to pay for positions when the grants run out, the positions go away. We're talking positions, we're not talking people. And I think it's redundant for us to do that because we have it with so many departments. We have the obligation as the board at budget to review the position control list. If the position control list said this is a grant, shows that they're grant-funded positions and they no longer have funding, then that would be in the position control list in the department's budget. I don't feel a need to add anything more to the resolution on the grant-funded position. Our department heads know that if they don't have the money and the grants go, then those positions go too. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
This is not budget time right now. This is in between budget time, and it's coming to us for a position control change. So at the same time you're talking about, we can talk about it budget time, we can talk about it now, and this is the direction the board looks like they're going, because this was not on budget. It didn't exist then. So.
No, but it will exist next year.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it's redundant for us to do this. The process, the departments know what they can and can't do regarding grant-funded positions. And I don't think we need to tell them, oh, well, when the grant money goes away, the positions go away. I think they're all cognizant of that. And I'm not sure why we're having to tell them again that same thing. That's what we hire them to do, to manage their departments, to get grants, to fund positions. I know Health and Human Services has a vast number of grant-funded positions. That's how they survive. I don't feel the need to tell her. The sheriff also has a vast number of grant-funded positions. I don't feel the need to tell him that, oh, when the grants go away, the positions go away. I think they already know that. I mean, I didn't vote for it last time because of that. I mean, I'll vote for this. I just need to voice my opinion of what we're telling department heads that they already know. But I will entertain, Mr. Mills, could you please give me the words that you would like in the resolution?
Yes, that,
And where you would like it, please.
okay, go back and read. Statement is that after the sunset date of November 18th, 2022, and the recommendation it would include, or the funding is terminated, whichever comes first. And that would be my motion.
It's effective, approves it effective November 7. It doesn't give on the
sunset date.
resolution.
No, the sunset date on the recommendation is with the sunset date of November 18, 2022.
I guess what I'm asking is, did you want that in the resolution?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr.
I have a
Garamendi.
question regarding the resolution changes. What if we put that language in, what if this grant is extended? We just terminated it regardless of funding availability, whichever comes first. I think I agree with Madam Chair. This is a completely redundant exercise. But how would your resolution, Supervisor Mills, affect it if, for example, in the next 2 years, this program is extended?
It ends, sorry, that's it.
That's why I asked about the date being in it, because it could get extended. Did he want both the date and the money? It could get extended, you're absolutely right. So I was...
There's a reason they put the 2022 as the 3-year term that Ms. Hawkins had brought up earlier when I had asked my question. So that needs to be in there so that they can start it back over when the money gets continued. So this will be brought back before us, from my understanding, in 2022. Is that correct, Ms. Hawkins?
Yes, it is.
Thanks. That's why that date's there.
It's,
Dennis, you have the resolution in front of you?
Yes, I do.
I guess the question from Madam Chair is, where and at what part of the resolution do you want to add what you're saying?
So it would be after the second whereas effective November 2020, or until the funding is no longer available.
See, it doesn't
Okay.
make sense like that.
That kind of does not correlate with the discussion we just had about bringing it back to us in 2022.
Because 2022 isn't even mentioned here.
Right.
Ms. Hawkins, do you
so
have any ideas?
what about effective November 7 through November 18, 2022, or until
Such
the
time
funding
is no longer available
is not available on this current grant?
on this current grant. That's excellent. That's an excellent way to put it.
Any other modifications?
I have another question I need to add to this, because the recommendation isn't necessarily reflected in the resolution,
Got it.
but that's...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's all.
Ask your question.
I think that states it all with the November 22nd. I think that, personally, the recommendation is closer to what the resolution should say. That's just my perception.
Okay, we're ratifying the resolution on the second whereas, effective November 7 through November 18, 2022, or until as long as funding is available through this current grant. Do you have that, Mrs. Glanville? Mr. Mills, does that satisfy you?
Thank you, I would
Okay.
support that.
All right.
And that is a motion.
So, oh, yes, thank you very much. Are there any public comments on this item?
I do not have anybody online right now.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion on item 8's resolution authorizing changes to the position control list as modified by Health and Human Service Agency?
So moved.
Motion by Supervisor Mills, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Tuffanelli, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
I'd like to move to the regular agenda, Part 2. Ms. Galano, did you want to tell us how you would like to proceed? This is a, excuse me, a presentation on the 2020 Calaveras Visitors Bureau.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, Honorable Board, Kathy Galino here. I have Martin Huberty on the line. There he is. Can you see him?
No, we can't see you either.
Oh. Can you see me now?
See you now. Thank you.
Good morning. And we have the wonderful Martin Huberty here to give the board an annual update on what the CVB, the Calaveras Visitors Bureau, and Film Commission have been up to. I do have handouts. I wasn't sure whether we had members of the public that wanted the copies of the presentation. So I have those available and I can bring them over to the board.
Thank you.
Whatever you guys need. So what I can do is I will go ahead and share the screen and we'll start our presentation. Can you see the screen? Yes. Can you see the screen?
Affirmative.
Okay, Kathy, I can see it as well. So I'll go ahead and start. Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors Supervisors Garamendi, Stopper, Tuffanelli, and Mills. My name is Martin Huberty. I'm the Executive Director of the Calaveras Visitors Bureau, the Director of the Calaveras Film Commission, and I'm also the Director of the Angels Museum. Kathy, could we go to the next slide? I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present to you today and also to represent Calaveras County. My love for Calaveras County goes back a long way. I just wanted to show you my roots here in Calaveras. On the left-hand side of the screen is my great-great-grandfather, John Huberty, who was the original pioneer who came to Calaveras in 1854. And he's parked in a buggy, which I still have, outside what is now the county archives. And that used to be the Huberty household and the American restaurant. And on the right is my great-great-grandmother on my father's mother's side. And she came to Calaveras in 1857. And she toured Murphy's, stayed at the hotel, danced on the stoop up at the big trees, and wrote a diary about her experiences, which is at the state capitol. And I'd like to think that she wrote the first travel log for Calaveras County, that I know of at least. We can go to the next slide. I broke down this presentation in 3 sections, and really I broke it down around COVID, because as of today, I've been in this position in COVID longer than any other position. I had 7 months before COVID hit us, and we had 7 months of growth. We were 12% up in walk-ins, we were 36% up in phone calls, and 12% up in our visitors, web visitors. I changed the shop here at the CVB into representing the best of Calaveras. We had olive oil from Burson, honey from Valley Springs, t-shirts from West Point, metalwork from San Andreas, trying to bring the best of Calaveras together in one shopping experience, which was very successful. I also worked hard on the appearance of the Visitors Bureau. I think that first impressions mean a lot. In thinking about the Visitors Bureau and how we are represented in the county, I tried to spread out, and I felt that we really needed representation on Highway 4. So for 6 months, we were represented in Copperopolis. CV Properties gave us the opportunity to have our office there. Having said that, it was very difficult to get people to come off the highway without the proper signage. And ultimately, I think that they would like to have a concierge service where people pay for information. So at the moment, we've not pursued that. I'd like to, in the 7 months also, we were very community driven. We kept up with the third night out in the downtown area of Angels Camp. We also did things such as holiday raffles in the county, where we were, for both locals and visitors, trying to get people to shop locally. In the local approach, I also looked to marketing and marketing locally, which I don't think had been done before. I was working with Lori at the fairgrounds to present the frog jump in a bigger way. We were actually scheduled to go to the Best of Country show in Sacramento, and Lori was going to bring frogs and what have you to jump there the week before the frog jump. Also, I was in talks with Richter Entertainment at Ironstone to present at concerts and be able to go in front of the crowd and show them the best of Calaveras. Ironstone gets upwards of 5,000 people, and I don't know that they know what else goes on in the county, so I wanted to be able to show them, what else there is to do. Come and say. When I came into this position, we did an audit of our social media and website. What I found was that 49% of the people that look at our website come from Sacramento. So we did a lot of marketing in Sacramento. We changed our distribution of visitors guides to really carpet Sacramento. We created a new branding, which I'll get to later in the presentation. I also created, with the Murphy's Creek Theater, the start of the little film festival. Again, all of these things were canceled because of COVID. And then that moves me into the visitor's guide. Actually, Kathy, can we go to the next slide? The visitor's guide, this year, the CVB used to subsidize the visitor's guide. I felt it was very important that the guide paid for itself. So it is a smaller guide, but it's very condensed, and all of the information in there is very, we haven't lost any of the information. The guide itself was very popular. We went with a more romanticized cover because our demographic is moms, really. It's female, it's moms, and I wanted to be able to create something that was attractive to them. When we were at the LA trade show representing the CVB, our brochure, our visitor's guide, flew off the shelves more than any other guide, and I think it is because of the cover. I'm going to run this guide for the next year. The reason being is I don't feel that our advertisers got a fair shake, and also we have quite a few of them in stock. And I think that most of the other DMOs and people in my position, especially in the gold country, are doing the exact same thing and following suit. This guide also exists online, and we will be updating that. So even though the paper version won't be updated, we'll be updating the online version all year long. And I'd also like to add that I would love, and this was Kathy's idea, at the beginning of our guide, I'd love to have a letter introducing Calaveras County to our visitors, and I think it would be wonderful if the Board of Supervisors would write that letter. We can go to the next slide, Kathy. So the 7 months within COVID, well, it's actually over that now. In any case, we shut down on March 16th. It was a very difficult decision to make, but ultimately being on the forefront and having visitors come in from all over the world, it was a nerve-wracking, to be honest. We have revamped our budget considerably, and ultimately are working with less than half of what we were normally had. I had to furlough everybody, including myself, for 4 months. We did come back, and unfortunately, I did have to lay off 2 of the positions. Our digital content manager and our event manager. It was a tough decision with the board, but ultimately, we just had to save the money, and there didn't seem to be a need for the social media, as well as event managers, obviously, at the time. We've gone quiet on all social media. What we found is anything that we posted under the auspices of the Visitors Bureau was getting a lot of negative reaction from locals. We've had to reinvent ourselves. We wanted to matter, so we've, again, been very involved in the community. I've worked very closely with Kathy and the Office of Economic and Community Development, as well as the Chamber of Commerce. We worked to get an EDA grant, which I'm sure you all know about. And also the CVB has been very active with the Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, as well as the Murphy's Creek Theater and DAC, Destination Angels Camp, in working with Debbie Ponte. In restructuring our budget, it was obvious that we were going to have to make some major changes, and one of those changes was moving in with partnering, I should say, with the Angels Museum. To me, it didn't make sense not to have the museum open, and it made total sense for the CVB to be here to not only attract people to go through the museum, but also to talk to the people that were coming to the museum and not stopping at the CVB. Just on a side note, what I found is last month we had 125 people stop here because of the CVB, and 81 people stop for the museum. In the week that we've been open, we've been able to get a lot of the people that stop for the CVB to go through the museum. So I think it's a model that works, and it's been a fantastic collaboration. And I thank Melissa Eads and the City Council for letting it happen. I've also been working with Casey Jardine up at the Stanislaus National Forest, going back to the idea that I feel that the CVB needs to be represented around the county. I would like to have representation on Highway 4, and she has offered us to be represented at Hathaway Pines in their ranger station when that opens, and we could have signage on the highway. I'd also like to thank SNAC and bring attention to them, as they've not only helped me with a lot of things with the Film Commission and providing sports equipment for filming, but also handing out our Hop Lightly bags. Obviously, trash has been a huge problem, and they've been handing out our plastic bags. And most people say, well, the people that go to SNAC are the least likely to litter, but I argue that they're also the most likely to pick up garbage. I've been working closely with Morgan at the Chamber of Commerce, and we did our State of the County 11 interviews, which was a lot of fun and a wonderful way of being able to do the State of the County virtually this year. The CVB board has been incredibly supportive. We have a representation from Hogan to Bear Valley, and they've been just a fabulous board to work with, and I thank Kathy Galino. She's our president. In part of reinventing ourselves during COVID, Lori Giannini and I have been doing drive-in movies out at the fairgrounds, and it's been incredibly successful. It is not a moneymaker. It's for the community. Just seeing kids in their PJs watching movies at night has made it all worth it. It's something that I would like to develop and create more of next year. And hopefully next year we don't have to be in cars and we can actually just do it outside movies. But it's something that we can do around the county and not just in Angels. I'd love to be able to see this. I was talking to Mary Jane Ginocchio about possibly doing it in Moke Hill, close down Main Street for the night and show a movie. And that also leads into PSAs, but I'll show you the PSA in a moment that we did, the Film Commission. I'd like to talk about the website. Actually, Kathy, if you would go to the next. Kathy's actually going to show you what the website looks like now. And it's a little stuttery. When you click on it yourselves, it doesn't jump like this. In any case, I felt it was very important to show people when they come onto the website what Calaveras has to offer, but also subliminally, I think it was very good to be able to show people wearing masks and being socially distanced and showing our outdoor spaces. One of the reasons for updating the website was to make the navigating around the website easier for people. And this is actually a very easy website to use, and you can create your own itineraries. And also, Kathy, I don't know if you can scroll down, but if you go down to the map, for example, just trying to make things simpler, just down a little bit more, and doing things in terms of time as opposed to mileage. For example, when you say here at the CVB that Angels, you go 9 miles up the road and you're in Murphy's, people from LA think that's going to take an hour. It's like, no, that's like 9 minutes up the road. In any case, I would encourage you all to please look at the website. If you have any questions or issues, to let me know and we can update them. We do have the company that created this on a retainer, and we're constantly working on it. Kathy, we can go to the next slide. And this just shows you some of the movies. We just showed Toy Story 4, and we also had Beetlejuice as well. So for the 6 movies, I'd love to be able to show at least 10 around the county next summer. We can go to the next slide. Whoops. It's not playing the audio.
That was a great ad.
I won't dwell on it. It's Pat Connard, and ultimately he's wonderful as Mark Twain. It was a message that we used to try and get people to follow the 5 rules that Kristen gave us. And ultimately it was fun. It got almost 5,000 hits on the internet. And that was without pushing or spending any money in publicizing it. It's the type of content that I would like to continue doing. We are slated to do one on trash, one on visiting locals, or getting locals to come to the museums. And there are a slew of other things that we're trying to do, so we're pushing forward to get those done in the next month or 2. We can go on to the next slide. And this is the third section of COVID that I want to talk about, which is the future and where we're going from here. And I'd like to continue the CVB and the Film Commission partnering and doing joint events. We work very closely with Visit California. We have 2 FAM trips coming into the county. One tomorrow and then one at the beginning of November. These are social media influencers. I feel it's a very delicate and nice way to keep the county in people's minds, but not actively marketing and bringing hordes of people in. And Visit California, again, has been an amazing organization to work with. I also work with the GCVA, which is the Gold Country Visitors Association. And as I say ACT road trips, I'm working constantly with Amador and Tuolumne and creating ideas for people for road trips. Obviously, road trips are huge at the moment, and we are talking about collaborating as well in pooling our resources to do safe road trips. What I think ultimately is going to happen, or just a guess, I guess I should say, is that once people can travel again, they're going to disappear. And what's going to bring people back to Calaveras are our landmark events. And I feel very strongly that we keep our marketing dollars safe right now, because we're going to need them when this time comes. And events like Lumberjack Days, Murphy's Irish Days, the Frog Jump, those are what we really need to be promoting and spending money on getting people to come back when the time comes. I also really want to work on activating locals now. When was the last time that you actually came to the museum and hung out downtown? I'd like, obviously it's tough times, but I'd like to be able to have locals really just in the museum alone, just come back to the museum. We are being very, very cautious. There's a very strict protocol that we follow. And I think it's a wonderful way to keep our head above water at the moment. I will go back into wayfaring signage. That's my big bone of contention. I would like to make sure that we can get better signage for our tourists. The other DMOs in California, the destination marketing organizations, are not necessarily working and spending money on attracting visitors. They're really spending time and money on creating their infrastructure to make visitors have a great experience while they're in their area. And for me, that means better signage, getting to 4 and 49 and letting people know that there is downtown Angels there. Murphy's is difficult because the signage is there, but it's small and bitty, and there's so much that visitors get lost. I've had friends come from Europe. When I was living in Europe, I said, you have to do Highway 4, stop at Murphy's and go up over the Ebbets. And they'd come back to Europe and I'd say, did you enjoy your trip? And what did you think of Murphy's? And they said, oh, well, it was a gas station and a couple of hotels. We just kept going. Better signage. McCullum Hill, better signage. The signs are there. It just needs to be more coherent. And actually, I'd like to see it almost reflect if we could bring the ore cars back in. I mean, they're so wonderful at the beginning of our county. If there was a way that we could actually use the ore car to introduce our towns. Continue on with the Film Commission. Before COVID, I had worked with Tuolumne County, and we had a familiarization trip that was supposed to be happening, and unfortunately we had to cancel it. But I'd like to bring location managers up from LA. I'd like to see commercial and feature film location managers come see our area. It's really important. It's where it all starts with filming. Huge films. Sal Manna down at the archives did a brilliant job with Shannon in pulling together a whole document of how many films had actually been made in Calaveras County. And there are incredibly famous people who made big movies here in the 40s and 50s. And actually with the tax incentives now in California, there's no reason why we can't bring that back. Again, I would look into if we have the money for promotional agencies to help us bring people back, as well as word of mouth. I mean, I think that the travel industry, bringing people into town, it's exactly the same as making movies in that it's word of mouth. If you had a good experience, there's no better marketing that you can do than to encourage people to come. And Kathy, we can go to the next slide. And this is the last slide that I would like to present, and this is ultimately our updated logo. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this. In all the branding work I've done in my past position, every branding company that we've ever worked with have always said, go to what's authentic, go to what's real, go to what you can tell a story about. And actually, it's been wonderful going back to the original frog from 1928, Frog Jump, to be able to talk to visitors when they come in and they ask about the frog. And you can tell them the story of the 1928 and that this was the frog that was developed for the first frog jump, and educate them about Mark Twain. We also have included the sequoias from the county seal, because ultimately the sequoias and the caverns, which are represented by the top right hand, are the two biggest draws since time began here in Calaveras to bring visitors in. And of course our lakes, rivers, and mountains and wild areas are the biggest draw that we have here in Calaveras. And obviously on the right is the Film Commission, just trying to keep them coherent. We also designed the new chamber logo as well, and they look fantastic standing next to each other. I think that's pretty much everything that I really wanted to cover. And thank you very much for your time. The last slide is just my name and my contact details. If you have any questions or issues, please contact me.
Mr. Huberty, thank you so very much. You really added a lot to the Visitors Bureau. You're bringing it forward. I think your new location's great. And,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any of the board members have anything? Mr. Stopper.
Thank you, Mr. Huberty. Your family tree is truly impressive. Its roots run very, very deep in Calaveras County. into the 1850s. That's long-standing. I mean, it's pretty much as long-standing as most of us can be without being native. To go on, understanding the hurdles and everything, I mean, you weren't even into your first whole year being in your position, and COVID-19 came along and blindsided all of us. So I understand where you're coming from, and you know, it's been quite a change in dynamics for everyone, and I appreciate you stepping up to the plate and everything you've done that you can underneath the circumstances. To move on, I mean, this is a bell that's been rung many times. Supervisor Toffanelli's brought it up in the past. I brought it up in the past. I believe Supervisor Garamendi some years back has brought it up. You brought up representation in Hathaway Pines, Casey Jardine stepping up. I believe we just appointed her to Parks and Recreation, Ms.
Yes.
Callaway. Very good lady. I met with her up there. You know, it's great to have members of our community involved. It's great that CV Partners has stepped up in Copperopolis. We have representation also from the Angels City Council and Angels Camp. This gives us the Highway 4 corridor. And once again, this doesn't speak too much to the Tri-Lakes area, McCalmy Hill, for instance, the McCalmy River. Although I know we aren't forgotten. It's something to keep in mind for the future. I don't expect us to be working on this at this time because of the dynamics and COVID-19 and everything else. I want you to keep it in mind as we move forward. An office representation in the west side of the county would be appreciated. You know, and you know, I just overall your presentation. This isn't to take away from what you just said, because you know your view for the future and everything else, you know, really sings to my heart, and I hear where you're going, and I appreciate it, and I agree. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity here in Calaveras County that hasn't necessarily been utilized in the past, and I think you're working in that direction, and I fully support you working in that direction. We have the Tri-Lakes and Valley Springs area. We have McCalmy Hill, and you know, beautiful small town. The signage is very good point. One thing I think McCalmy Hill has done for themselves is a picture of the Hotel Leger on the road, so you actually get an idea. There's something down that Main Street road right there, not just the highway while you drive by, because the beautiful trees on the sides of the road hide everything there, as opposed to other places. So just thank you for your work. Just a few small seeds I want to plant for reminders for the future. And, you know, I look forward to working with you more in the future also, Mr. Liberty. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Stopper. Could I just add that my office is at San Andreas, and that I am working with the Chamber, and hopefully we had talked about possibly setting up another Best of Calaveras shop at the Chamber. I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but ultimately we will be able to have guest services there at San Andreas as well. So it is definitely on my mind. Thank you.
Mr. Tuffanelli.
Yes, Mr. Hubbard, thank you very much for your work. You're very dedicated, and you have brought a lot to the table for CVB, even though we are going through this pandemic. So I want to thank you very much for the work you've done, and you've established here in San Andreas. You have very well aware of that. I just have a couple of comments. One on your website that you flashed through there and all the things that were happening there. You asked for comments on it. I did not. It went through pretty fast, but I didn't see anything from the Western Tri-Lakes area at all on there. Maybe we get some pictures of Hogan Lake or Comanche Lake or something on there. Again, you may have it. I didn't see it. At least there is activities there. And there is an annual fireworks show over Hogan, maybe a picture of some fireworks over Hogan or something like that on that website. I'd surely appreciate it. The other thing is, you asked at the beginning for a letter from the Board of Supervisors for your guide, an opening letter. And I would like to volunteer that Ben and I write that letter.
No.
That's suspect.
at least start the initiations of some type of letter, and we can bring it to the board.
But he's not going to do a thing until another year.
Well, it'd give us a year to write the letter then.
Well, actually, I can include the letter in the digital version. We are updating our digital version, so yeah, if that letter could manifest, it would be wonderful to be able to put it in now.
Well, we'll do a group letter.
I promise to think about you, Jack, also when we're working on
Yeah,
this.
I gotta admit, I get a little suspect if you jump too quick.
Yeah, I know, I did too.
This makes me nervous.
I just brought it up. I had the first opportunity to say so, that Ben and I would volunteer for this letter.
Yeah. Watch your grammar and spelling.
Supervisor Toffanelli, in the website, those initial shots of the paragliders, there's an amazing paragliding company out in the Tri-Lakes area, are over Hogan.
Oh, great, good. Thank you. And that's all I had. You're doing a great job, Martin. Absolutely wonderful job. And once we get through the pandemic, I know all the groundwork you're laying now will certainly help this county moving forward in retaining our businesses and retaining people coming back, not just for a single visit, but coming back to Calaveras County. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mills.
Yes, Mr. Hubbard, I know I haven't met you, but I certainly can see you're putting your stamp and your personality on the direction that this needs to go. Oftentimes, I say in Copperopolis that we have too long looked at these communities as being waypoints to recreational areas somewhere else, and that they need to be viewed on our side first as a destination and not a waypoint. And once we start to change our perception, then we'll project that in how we deal with our visitors. People recreate in very different ways in our communities, whether it's to be in the winery areas or to be up in the mountains or in the lakes, whatever it might be. But the goal should be always in creating a memory. Some people like the idea of familiarity. They go places that they are comfortable in and they're familiar with. And getting them to stretch their legs outside of those boxes and to explore new areas and to say, yes, I like the forest, but I only like this part of the forest, is really where we're struggling right now, and trying to get them into those new areas and seeing other pieces to the large dynamics. We are very unique. We are like the Disneyland of nature here in Calaveras County. And if we could just understand how unique this territory is in relation to many, many other parts of the United States. When you go to Europe, you can see it as well. But we are unique in that way. And if we could project to those people that potentially come and make use of our area, maybe they want something more than just to ride on the teacup. And if we could show them what that is, they might buy into it. Saturday Hopper is a great tool that we've used and utilized, especially for those people who go up to Murphy's. But maybe that's something also to look at expanding. How do we get back to the ski bus that we had years ago? How do we get back to large events at Frogtown that we used to do in the late 70s and early 80s? Those are all of those pieces to the puzzle. So, like I said, you and I have never met, but these are things that you're starting to put your stamp on, and hopefully it will achieve good results. But as you know, oftentimes things take time, and having COVID in the middle of it hasn't given you a whole lot of opportunity to really showcase what it is that could be done. I love the idea of the ore carts around each town, so that people who are visitors here kind of can relate to what our history is and be able to put that in their repertoire. Maybe it's not the idea of just going to a lake. Maybe it's the idea of when I go to the lake, I'm going to stop and remember all of the other things. People forget about what the town of Maloney's was and the opportunity that was down there before that lake went underwater. How do we remind them of what that history is? That's really a part of what visitors will want to come and see us and see what we are. So thank you for your work, and looking forward to some great things from you in the future.
Thank you,
Mr. Mills. I couldn't agree with you more, and I also just want to say thank you. You were the first person that invited me into this position, your email.
Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Martin, thank you so much. I love where you're going. I think you really do get Calaveras. And because of all your experience outside Calaveras, you have a good feel for what's going to bring people back. So I agree with a lot of what's been said here today. I do have to question the Disneyland of nature, Dennis. Where is the bear country? You know, who gets a small world? Pirates of the Caribbean, Swiss Family Robinson. I think I can place several of those in my district. But it's neither here nor there.
Maybe if you go to the museum in Angels Camp, you'll find them.
But, you know, and I do like the logo and being consistent with things like the core or carts and other stuff. And you know, I have gotten comfortable with the Chamber of Commerce's new logo. It was a bit of debate in the Garamendi home. Is that really a Bret Hart purple or is that a blue?
Well, we hope.
But,
we hope it's purple.
We landed on the blue and say it's okay. But just to let you know, that did go around the dinner table, but I just want to encourage you and thank you very much for the presentation today, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor.
Mr. Huberty, are you purple or are you red?
I'm actually blue at the moment. It's freezing in here.
Oh, God.
He's changing a couple shades of red right now, so.
Did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That's fine. Martin, thank you very much. You've brought a lot of positive changes to the Visitors Bureau and moving with the times and what you've had to do economically, and people saying, well, I don't know, they had a good location in Angels Camp. Well, you know, at your prior location, you have a great location now. I know on behalf of the board, we appreciate you working with other community groups, both private and public community groups. And the fact that you're looking forward to post-COVID speaks well for the Calaveras Visitors Bureau. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You could give us last words.
No. Kathy, is there anything else you have to say to close this item out?
No, I don't, other than it is really an honor to work with Martin. He's brought great vision to the county, really stepping up to taking things to the next level. And it's just great working with him and his history and his willingness to jump in at any given point.
Just remember, he's sixth generation. You know, you have to get that correct. Okay, thank you.
Kathy, are you back?
I am back.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
We missed you.
Are there any public comments on this presentation?
I do not have anybody online reading.
With no public comments, I close this item out and move to supervisors' announcements. Mr. Mills?
Yeah, just very quickly, we're working with the Bureau on the reopening or potential reopening of natural bridges, but one very disconcerting issue came up during the last conversation with them. People are going down there after hours and establishing fire rings down at the river. So the sheriff and Bureau are working together to try to figure out how to contain or control that situation should it pop out. But it will be a very controlled location once it reopens, and people need to be aware of that. So thank
maybe
you.
it can reopen when it's really cold out.
I would hope so.
Supervisor Tuffanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to bring up that I had a meeting last Wednesday, the CPPA, Calaveras Public Power Authority meeting, and they provide the power to most governmental entities here in this county. And during the course of the meeting, it was brought up that PG&E has petitioned FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulation Commission, for adjustment on their rates, and not only that, a change in how they do their billing. and this will affect us tremendously here at Government Center in the fact that they are now asking for approval to start billing not on usage, but on your capacity for usage. So they will bill you whether you use the energy or not for what your full capacity would be. And just in short, that means if you have a 100-watt box and you only use 50 watts a month, they'll still bill you for 100% of what capacity you can use. And what that translates into, we get, CPPA transmits power to these government agencies, including Government Center here. About a third of that power is generated and the money goes to PG&E, and it translates into pretty close to, if not over, $200,000 hit per year into our budget to pay for the capacity that we have here at the county. So that would be into our budget on a yearly basis if they are successful in having FERC approve it. Now, there are several larger agencies throughout the state, very large, much like San Francisco and the Bay Area and Pleasanton, and we've joined forces with those CPPAs and hired a law firm to represent us. These hearings with FERC are going to be taking place during November and December. We will know by the end of December, 1st of January, more about whether FERC has approved it or not, or what portion of their proposal FERC has approved. They've submitted, PG&E submitted a 2,000-page proposal backing up their request to do this. It's quite extensive. Our law firm is putting together our counter proposal for all the other agencies that have joined with us to submit to FERC. And then there'll be a series of hearings at FERC being conducted probably in San Francisco concerning this. This is part of the move for PG&E as they came out of bankruptcy. How far it goes, I don't know. I don't know if their plans are, if this is successful here, whether then it will move to public, commercial, I don't know at this point. It hasn't become clear, but they have proposed to do this here. And again, it would be around $200,000, if not more, hit to our budget yearly. I thought I would bring that out and let everybody know that's happening. It will affect, because it's a third of our billing, it will affect the payback on the loan on energy savings for air conditioning units that we got to do, at least a third of that. So it could extend that loan payment back from 10 years to maybe up to 15-year payback, because we're no longer receiving any credits. And what this actually does, it doesn't give you any incentive to save power. The thoughts are going to be, if I'm going to pay for it, I'm going to use it. So when PG&E puts out alerts saying we have high energy consumption, you need to save power, you need to turn things off so we have enough to generate it, are you going to actually turn lights off? Are you going to turn air conditioners off? Are you going to save power knowing that you're going to be paying full capacity regardless if you use it or not? It could mean large power outages in the future. Talk about PSPSs, it could be large because of it.
So there's nothing in their proposal that when we have to cut back, then that would help us?
Not to our knowledge. But again, it's a 2,000-page proposal. Going through all of it is very time-consuming, but during the discussions that we had, and I called Dennis back several times during the course of last week and this week, and asking questions on it, no, as far as we know, there's no incentive to conserve power during those times. They're going to bill 100% for whatever your capacity you have, whether you use it or not. It's very concerning. I was at a function that McClintock was at on Saturday, and I brought it up to him at that time. It's maybe something we can talk to Mia about and have her look into or lobby. Again, the hearings will be taking place next month, November and December. So if we're going to have to do that, we need to do that relatively quickly. Maybe we can, because this is, I can't do anything here, and we can't do a motion to have Al do it, but maybe at some point we can talk and have Al send something to Mia saying, or the chair, saying something about, can she look into this and lobby on our behalf, not only our behalf, but all public power authorities' behalves.
Is that what CPPA would like us to do? Or
We would
you're
like
just-
anything that we can do. Again, we've hired a law firm that we're paying for. The other thing I want to bring up, and it was talked about and we discussed, and we'll meet in January, but any increases, we have a pot of money that we can use for rate increases, to offset rate increases. And we propose that if this takes place in January or February, it looks like, because we asked for a 5-month extension, they set their proposal on September 15th. We asked for a 5-month delay in anything that they do, any rate increases, which starting September 15th, which take us to February 15th. So any increases that come out of FERC or come forward from here on, we will cover, CPPA will cover through June 31st. So it won't hit us on the current fiscal year. CPPA has the funding for any of those increases, and it looks like overall CPPA, overall, it's going to be about a $500,000 hit to all these agencies. You're talking about Bret Hart, Calaveras, all these small
CCWD.
districts, they all CPPA power. Everything, it looks like CPPA is going to have about a $500,000 hit. We have money in that pot to cover that through the fiscal year. So, well, June 30th, one time. And then, so we will have to budget for that. We'll know by our budget time coming up for our budget talks in June that what we'll have to cover, what the hit will be, what the amount will be. They're asking for a 10-cent increase, from my understanding, from their current billing. And we pay 8.5 cents, so it's almost double, it's over double what they're asking for. Whether they'll get that, I don't know. But on top of that increase, they're asking for, again, a complete capacity. Whatever your capacity for power is, that's what they're going to bill you on, whether you use it or not. So that was very important that I bring that to this board so they're aware of it.
Chair, at the risk of this turning into an agenda item, the only thing I would say is that remember in 2015 there was a severe inability to generate CPPA power during the drought of 2015. And I would like to be sure that, Mr. Tofanelli, you bring that back to the discussion, that should Maloney's drop below power generation levels, that how does that impact?
If we're not provided by CPPA, I can ask Dennis about it.
Correct, thank you.
Also, incentives on solar. If you're hooked up to a 200 amp service, for example, and you put solar on and you're taking care of all your power with solar, you're still paying for that 200 amps 100% of the time.
Correct.
Which, that goes beyond the conversation, but I would support Gary's ask on asking our CAO to move forward on something with Mia, or a letter, or whatever else needs to happen. I would support that personally.
Mr. Garamendi.
I do think we have to be careful about this becoming an agenda item, but this is a critical issue. And Gary, I thank you for bringing this forward, and I thank the CCPA for being willing to help cover whatever shortfalls should this fail. Sometimes it's better to do a little bit of prevention than fixing. So if CCPA decides, and know they've hired a law firm, but there's other lobbying resources that you guys can bring to bear. I'd much rather pay $100,000 up front and get this off the books than $500 down the road. So I would encourage you board to just take the lead and drive.
Okay. One other thing I want to bring up is I want to say that I did misspeak last week during the presentation by the fire chiefs on this loan. I brought up and mentioned a letter, and I was mistaken in the fact that I meant that there was the proposal that was voted on by Mountain Valley EMS board on the Wednesday before that was an extension period from December 31st to May 31st for ambulance coverage, and part of that was that because it's not exclusive during that period, because there's no actual contract other than an extension, that the ambulance service is not exclusive to ALA. Another ambulance service can come in and petition Mountain Valley EMS to be part of ambulance service during this period. That ALA asked to be in part of that extension, that if things were not profitable for them, that they could have send a 90-day notification of withdrawing from the county, providing service from the county. That was the gist of what I was trying to say. So I want to just bring up that I did misspeak on a letter that was presented. It was part of the contract extension. So that's all I have.
Mr. Stopper? Yeah? No. Mr. Garamendi, nothing else? Okay. If there's no further comments from the board, I would like to adjourn back into closed session for item 21. Okay, thank you. Thank you.